G'day ladies and gentlemen, ScottyD here from the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network, and today we've got a very special video for you guys. We have actually got a very early access. Even though we don't get GW previews on the network, we've got early access to do an unboxing video of the Leviathan box set for 10th edition. Thanks to our great friends at Jolt Games. Lewis and the team have allowed me to come in, and we're going to get a look at what is in the box, have a look at the sprues. We've got the books in there and such as well. So we're gonna have a full unboxing, see what's in there, see what you guys are getting for this week's video. So let's jump into it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so here we are. We've got the Leviathan box sitting right in front of us, and let's crack it right open and have a look and see what is inside. So as you can see, some primo box art for this one for sure. I'm just going to sit that off to the side, and as you can see, we've got this topper poster, as is common in a lot of the box sets that Games Workshop do nowadays, particularly at the start of a release of an edition. And then we come into some of the sprues, and by gosh, there's a lot. So I'm going to kind of unpack these just as they are, and we'll kind of talk about the models as we see fit. So starting off, we've actually got the Ballistus Dreadnought. Now this thing, surprisingly, you expect these to be easy to build kits, and they are. So you can see the torsos are, in two pieces. You've got the front hull. Normally on a Redemptor, you'd see this piece separate. You'd see all the individual parts for the carapace separate. So really a straightforward kit by looks. You've got the massive Ballistus las cannon there and the missile launcher on the same sprue. So it looks like it's going to be a relatively easy build, because there's looking as though there's about 20 to 25 pieces for this build for the Ballistus. So not too bad for a larger scale model. And by looking at the actual kits themselves, as they are relatively fresh, you can actually probably see that there's going to be minimal mold lines on these, except for parts where they connect and such as well. So you don't have to be too thorough when cleaning mold lines if you don't want to. But of course, if you enjoy cleaning mold lines as much as I do and making sure every single possible surface where they are is cleaned, then you can go to town still. So that is your Ballistus Dreadnought. Then we have got what seems to be the Psychophage that is on the same, along the same line of sprue as the Neurotyrant, as well as just the Neurotyrant, potentially parts of the Screamer Killer as well. So really there's a lot here for this one, a lot of wriggly bits. And as you can see, you've got the smaller nodes for the Neurotyrant on this one, as well as the massive, massive carapace of, I dare say, that is either the Psychophage or the Screamer Killer on here, as well as the carapace for the Neurotyrant with both sides of the head on here, I believe. No, just the one side. No, both sides are on here. Bunch of claws, obviously, for the Screamer Killer as well. And then you've also got the Psychophage on this one with a bunch of arms and all the tentacles and stuff there as well. But I'm sure there is going to be the rest of that kit lying somewhere. And as you can see, very similar again. Not too many mold lines here, but there are going to be ones like on the tentacles. You'll see a lot of mold lines, so you're going to want to clean those up quite easily. So I'm going to pop those guys off to the side now. Now we get into some of the Gribblies. Now we've got 1, 2, 3. Actually, those are the... Nope, those should be the right ones, I believe. So we are looking at all of the... or at least a handful. I think we've got a couple more sitting in here in place as well, but these look to be the new Termagaunts sprues that we have got. So we've got 2 individual ones, and they've got the Ripper Swarms on them by a look. So we'll have a look at those first. And so as you can see, you've got a couple of Rippers per these sprues. I think it's 3 per sprue to make that Ripper Swarm. And then you've also got 3 of the Termagaunts in here with the flesh borers on there as well. By looks, they're like 3 to 4 piece miniatures as well. So plenty of mold lines by looks in terms of like where they could be, because the body is generally going to be one massive piece and the arms are individual for these guys. And then the Ripper Swarms, The Rippers are just single piece miniatures. So you can just pop those onto the base and you're good to go for them. And then we come into some of the larger sprues for the Termagaunts, and also these guys have also got Rippers on them. So by looks, there's going to be a decent number of Rippers per base, maybe 4 or 5, because you've got a Ripper here that connects, or that could even connect into some of the bases of the Termagaunts as well. So we'd have to have a look at the instructions to be able to tell how all these guys go together, but it is looking as though these Termagaunts are going to be pretty straightforward to put together, and they are beefy. They do look a lot nicer than the existing kit, I will give it that. As someone who is not a Tyranid player and not really enthused by the faction, they do look actually really well done and really nice resculpts for them, for those of you who are wanting to update all your Termagaunts. Now we do come to the Von Ryan's Leapers sprue. So we did see these guys online and previewed, and by looks they're a decent number of parts per model, and I could definitely foresee where some of these more like the Leaper style arms are definitely going to be easily broken, so you want to take that care when you're storing these guys as well. Potentially you may even want to not glue them in, so you can just pop the arms off, potentially shave them down a little bit so they can still slot in and be nice and snug for your games, and then you can pop them off for transport is a potential another option. But there is quite a bit of nice detail, particularly around the mouths with the tentacles and the claws and the blades on the what seems to be the unit champion's head as well, and a lot of nice chitin work on the miniatures, as well as the claws looking very tyrannic in their nature. So definitely an interesting unit. Glad to see it on its own individual sprue as well. Then we come to one of the characters for the Space Marines, which is the new Librarian sprue. Now, I've been a little critical of the design of this Librarian, as I'm not overly keen on that glowing effect that they show in the armor when GW has painted up themselves. But by looking at it, it doesn't seem to be over the top when you're looking at the overall design in terms of how punchy it is. So it's really up to your painting taste, whether you do it super punchy or whether you just kind of do a pin wash and keep it a bit darker to show that it's not being fully activated kind of thing. Again, not overly keen on the runic design, but it does make sense for a Librarian to have such runes engraved. I do like the detail that they've got on the shoulder pads. Very reminiscent of Deathwatch, I will say. Same with the bolter on the wrist instead of being in the hand. Very reminiscent of Grey Knights as well. And a nice detailed power axe, which is great to see them doing a Librarian with a weapon other than a force staff, because having a force axe is definitely a lot more helpful on the battlefield in terms of doing damage. There is the only one head option, so you don't have the option between an unhelmeted and helmeted head with this guy. So that's something to bear in mind. If you do want to convert him to be a helmeted guy, you will have to do a little bit of work for that if you so choose to do so. But that is the Librarian. Then we come to the Terminator sprue. Now, we've actually got two sprues here, a smaller one and a larger one. We'll just flip them over because there's a lot more details on this side. And by gosh, do these guys look chunky. They look really beefy, which is great. Like, I think you can see a model on pictures and not like the look of a model in images. Say, for example, when Centurions first came out, a lot of people were like, oh, those don't look great, they're terrible models, like, I don't like design. And then they see them in person, they're like, oh, they're not so bad. And I think that's definitely the case with a lot of the miniatures you can see in this box set. So looking at the Terminators, I was quite happy with the scale and the beefiness of them. They do definitely keep that main aesthetic, but they do chunk up them quite a bit. Looking at them, you've got legs in various places, and it looks like there's going to be a lot of components to put together for these guys. The fists do have the faces off them as well, which I'm not 100% sure as to why they may have done that, but that's an interesting design choice. Majority of the legs are off. You've got the storm bolters in two pieces by looks as well, and then you've got the assault cannon, which is actually in full. It's not in any pieces. The arm is just all together with the assault cannon, which is great to see. Then you've got the teleport beacon for them as well on there with the power sword for the sergeant. With some of the heads, they do look as though they are individual, but they do have the hole slots to slot into the back of the Terminator bodies as well. So bear that in mind, and some of them the other way where the hole is in the Terminator body and you slot the head into it. So bear that in mind as you're assembling it. If you want some different posability or heads looking in different ways, you could always cut those off and potentially mount it differently, but just beware of how the actual head is modeled. Then next up, we have got we've actually got a couple here. We've got two that are together. We have got the Terminator Captain and the Flying Warrior Prime, the Winged Warrior Prime, I should say, for the Tyranids. And by looks, the Captain, first off, has got a lot of detail. There's a lot of detail in his sword, which I really love. I'm keen to do some pin washing, use capillary action in that to be able to really get that glowing effect on that those lettering in there, and keep it a nice bright silver for his sword when I get my set, as well as a lot of parchment details and filigree and such as well, with the Crux Terminatus on his shoulder pad as well as his shin. But yeah, overall, again, he's got quite a mounted base, so that's one thing that I've never been too big of a fan of personally, is the larger mounted bases. I more prefer plainer bases, more simpler bases. So only having the one base option compared to the Primaris Captain in Indominus, where there was the two options, taking the more simpler option was my choice on both of the ones that I've built. This one, only having the one option, is a bit of an interesting take. Then you've got the Winged Warrior Prime, which, again, these wings are pretty well detailed. There's obviously, you've got mold lines, as with any miniatures kit, in various places, but the one thing that I am surprised by is this center for the actual Warrior Prime, where the two sides of the torsos go onto it, and then the other piece actually slot into the torso, and so you actually have this blank space in on the side where they actually can connect to this middle piece, rather than it just being a hollow through a carapace with each of these pieces on the side. I think that's quite an ingenious design to give a bit more support to these arms and the wings when they are in place as well. Then we come to the Infernus squad with the Pyre Blasters. By looks, it's two identical sprues, so there might be one different build for the Sergeant and one for just a regular dude as well, so bear that in mind, or you may have the same 5 dudes twice. Really, we'll see the instructions in terms of that, but they do look identical. I dare say there's probably going to be one Sergeant build and one non-Sergeant build, because that's the way the Assault Intercessors were out of Indominus. I dare say for these Infernus Marines that it is going to be the same build. I've always liked the look of the Pyrecasters as well, I will say that, because they do look like a lot beefier flamers. I'm not the biggest fan of the traditional flamer, the look of it. I do think these do look a heck of a lot better though, in my personal opinion. Then we come to the sprue that has got one of my favorite units in 40k for the Space Marines, which has been in the game since 5th edition, and that is the Sternguard Veterans. Now, I absolutely love Sternguard Vets. They are amazing models, and I was a bit skeptical in terms of how much detailing they did have on them when, you know, the models previewed. So, actually looking at the models in person and the various components, I think they've actually got sufficient detail to what Sternguard Veterans should have as compared to the existing kit. Maybe not as much, and obviously they could save some of that detail for the full kit when they do release it as well. You've got the heavy bolter in there, you've got the combi plasma. I do like the design of the combi plasma, having it underneath rather than on top of the bolter. I do like that, as well as a couple of different bolter variants. And then you've also got on this sprue as well, you've got the Apothecary Biologist and the Lieutenant with combi weapon as well. Now, the Lieutenant, again, he's got the base piece there, same with the Apothecary Biologist, which means that, you know, you've got a little bit of extra detail to be painting on your bases, or you can keep them super simple. It's really up to you. I do like the more simplified base rather than the one here in comparison. So depending on the characters that they go with will depend on how you go. I know a lot of people did comment on the chitin covered arm for the Lieutenant. Again, that's a bit of extra detail, and it could be replacing broken armor or just over the top of the Phobos armor as well to reinforce it, which it does look as though it's there to reinforce it. So maybe it's unnecessary, but interesting design, I guess. Shows that he's a veteran of the tyrannic wars that are currently happening. And then we come to the last sprue, which is for the Tyranids, which has got the Neurotyrant, which these guys look to be 2 or 3 piece models. So decent number of them, but at the same time, there's not a whole entire full 2-part sprue to them. And then you've got the barb gaunts as well. Now, I've been a bit critical of the barb gaunts just in general with their design. I'm not the biggest fan of the massive gun over one arm. I would have liked to have seen it maybe been a smaller version of, say, a Biovore or a Pyrovore. Or maybe this is the next step in their evolution if they do go down this route. But in saying that, I do appreciate the design and the bulkiness of them in comparison to, say, something like the Neurogaunts or even the Termagaunts. It is that next stage up, and so you've got those there, and that is actually all of the sprues. So if we were to count the number of sprues that we've got, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, you got 5, 6, 7 with the Terminators, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 sprues. So 17 sprues of miniatures in total for the box set is quite huge. Now, if you are in the ATWN Discord, what you may have seen when this box was announced, I did actually a rough estimation on what I thought the costs of these kits were going to be individually after release. So if you haven't seen that, you can jump into the Discord, or I'm going to do the breakdown down in the description as well, as I actually think miniature-wise, each side of this box set probably comes to about $700 Australian if you were to buy the miniatures individually for each side. So you're looking at about $1,400 worth of miniatures in all of these sprues together. That accounts for the GW price increases, the increases in Sternguard Veterans, and the Terminators, as well as all the characters being at particular costs as well. I'll do a bit more of the breakdown in the description below as well for you guys. Now, we do have the traditional Warhammer poster here, which I think is the first time they've kind of included this one in the bottom. It just protects the sprues and what is underneath as well. And underneath, we have got the mighty tome that is the Leviathan rulebook, and you've got the instruction manuals on the back, which this will have all of your building guides on how you should be building your models, the way that to go about assembling them for the miniatures in the Leviathan box set. And then you've also got the Leviathan rulebook, and this thing is beefy. If you've got the 9th edition rulebook, it is a bit bigger in terms of width, which is quite good. I mean, it's encompassing the lore, it's got crusade rules, combat patrol rules, the 60 pages of core rules, as well as I believe some of the match play rules in here as well. Now, at the request, I'm not actually going to show any pages of this book as it has not been officially released, and so to not have any additional leaks or spoilers coming out from us here at the ATWN, to be on the up and up, we are not going to show any pages from the rulebook for you guys. So now we have got the Battle for Oghrim little pamphlet. So this is the code to actually register any games that you play of Leviathan to actually determine what the fate of Oghrim is going to be, whether it's going to be devoured by the Tyranids or is going to be saved by the Space Marines. You have then also got the massive transfer sheet here of all of the different Space Marines. Now, as there is no actual chapter markings on here, you can make them into any chapter. You've got Ultramarines, Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Raven Guard, Imperial Fists. The only couple of factions you don't, you've got Raven Guard in here as well. But you don't, sorry, yeah, we already covered Raven Guard, but you don't have stuff like Death Watch, for example, or Crimson Fist. But you could use Imperial Fists as Crimson Fist quite possibly, but they are red instead of the black there. And then last but not least, as we pop open this last little piece, and we've already had one of the pieces of sprue fall off, we have got the tactical mission cards in here that are for your match play games or your generic games as well, because they do use the one set of cards. And again, we're not going to crack those open and show you guys what is in there. I know plenty of leaks are out there, so you can find them online. And then you've got your bases underneath as well. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the box set of Leviathan. I think this is a really great value box set in my personal opinion. You're looking at, you know, $1,500 worth of value, because you could say the book comes in at roughly $100 Australian. So definitely something to get on board with if you are keen to jump onto either of these factions, to play them, if you collect them. I know I will personally be picking up a box of them myself and splitting them with one of the moderators of our community. I'll be getting the Marines, he will be getting the the Tyranids, because I'm not, as I've said, not the most avid Tyranid fan personally. But yeah, let me know down in the comments what you are excited for from the Leviathan box set, as I am just packing it away right now. Really, really happy with the overall feel of the set and what is included in it as well. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, there you have it. That is the unboxing of the Leviathan box set. A massive thank you to Lewis and the team at Jolt Games for allowing me to do a pre-recording, as this is their preview copy for the store. It is going up for pre-order this weekend on the 10th of July. Now, if you do want to find out a bit more about Jolt Games, they are one of the premier tabletop wargaming stores in Canberra. They've got some of the best gaming tables that I've seen at any game store has. They're nice and high, a bit higher up on your torso rather than being just your traditional trestle tables. And you can find them at joltgames.com.au, or you can search them up on Facebook. Got plenty of events going for a lot of various game systems, and are really great supporters of the Warhammer 40k community here in Canberra. Now, if you do want to catch more of this style of content as new releases do come out, let us know down in the comment section below if you do want to see more of this style of unboxing, or if you've got any of your own thoughts on Leviathan and what you think of the box set, what you think of the models that are included, what you're getting in the box set. Do you think it's worth the $420 Australian that it is rumored to be costing, or is potentially costing? Or do you think that maybe it is not something you're looking to pick up? Let us know down in the comment section below. If you haven't already, feel free to like and subscribe to the ATWN to catch all the content we are creating. Going into 10th edition, we're going to have how to play Warhammer 40k 10th edition for both veterans and newcomers to the game, so you're able to get into your games nice and quickly over the next couple of weeks and months to come, as well as tournament coverage across the Australian southeastern region, where we're covering a bunch of 10th edition events to get you guys with your tournament fix going as well. And if you do want to support the content we create, please check out the Ko-Fi page, where you can support us for as little as $1 Australian a week to help us create the content we're creating here on the ATWN and the tournament coverage that we provide to the wider community. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been ScottyD. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.